Most people believe emotional strength means never feeling anything, never feeling anger, never feeling fear, never feeling sadness. But that was never the teaching of Stoicism, and it was never the belief of Marcus Aurelius. The Roman emperor who ruled one of the most powerful empires in history faced betrayal, war, disease, and loss. Yet in the middle of that chaos, he wrote something remarkable. He wrote that the real battlefield of life is not outside you, it is inside you. Because every day something tries to control your emotions. A rude comment, a mistake, a delayed message, a disrespectful person, a sudden disappointment, and instantly the mind reacts, anger rises, frustration appears, the body tightens, thoughts race. Most people believe these reactions are automatic, but Marcus Aurelius believed something radically different. He believed that events themselves do not disturb us. Our interpretation of those events does. Two people can face the same insult. One explodes with anger, the other remains calm. The event was identical. The reaction was different. Why? Because between the event and the reaction there is a space, a moment where judgment occurs. In that moment, the mind decides what the event means. If the mind decides, this is an attack on my worth, anger appears. If the mind decides, this is just another human behaving poorly, calm remains. The Stoics understood this mental mechanism deeply. Your emotions are not controlled by the world. They are controlled by your interpretation of the world. And once you realize this, something powerful happens. You begin to see emotional reactions differently. Instead of feeling controlled by them, you start observing them. Anger becomes a signal. Fear becomes information. Frustration becomes a clue about expectations. Marcus Aurelius practiced this constantly. When someone insulted him, he reminded himself of a simple truth. People act according to their understanding. Some people understand patience. Others understand cruelty. Some people understand discipline. Others understand chaos. If someone behaves badly, it reveals their character, not your worth. Understanding this changes your emotional response. You stop seeing every insult as a personal attack. You start seeing it as a reflection of the other person's mind, and that realization creates distance. Distance between you and the emotional reaction. Now imagine what life becomes when you master this space. Someone insults you. Instead of reacting instantly, you pause. You ask yourself, is this really worth my peace? Most of the time, the answer is obvious. No. Most daily conflicts are not about truth. They are about ego, someone defending their pride, someone projecting insecurity, someone seeking attention. But if you react emotionally, you enter their chaos, and chaos spreads easily. Marcus Aurelius believed that calmness was a form of strength, not passive strength. Active discipline. The discipline to control your mind even when the world becomes difficult. This is why Stoic philosophy often describes emotional control as a kind of training, like training a muscle. At first, the mind reacts instantly. Anger appears before thought, but with practice, awareness grows. You notice the emotion rising. You observe it, and slowly you learn to choose your response. Choice replaces impulse. Clarity replaces chaos. And this ability to choose your response is what separates emotional maturity from emotional reactivity. Most people live reactively. Their mood changes depending on how others behave. If someone praises them, they feel confident. If someone criticizes them, they feel wounded. Their emotions become controlled by external events. But the Stoics believe true freedom begins when your emotional state is no longer controlled by the world. It is guided by your own judgment. This does not mean suppressing emotion. It means understanding emotion, understanding its source, understanding its trigger, understanding that emotions are temporary. Anger rises, anger falls, frustration appears, frustration despairs. But the decisions you make during those emotions can have lasting consequences. This is why Marcus Aurelius warned himself constantly in his writings. He reminded himself that losing control of the mind is the greatest defeat, because when you lose control of your mind, you lose control of your actions, and actions shape your life. Now imagine moving through the world with this awareness. Someone speaks disrespectfully. Instead of reacting instantly, you observe. Someone criticizes you unfairly. Instead of defending your ego, you evaluate calmly. Someone behaves irrationally. Instead of absorbing their chaos, you maintain distance. This discipline creates something rare, emotional stability, and emotional stability becomes a powerful advantage. People notice it. They see that you are not easily provoked, not easily offended, not easily manipulated, because manipulation relies on emotional reaction. If someone can trigger your anger, they control your behavior. But if you remain calm, their leverage disappears. This is the first lesson of Stoic emotional control. The world cannot control your emotions unless you allow it. Your judgment determines your reaction. Your reaction determines your peace. And peace begins when you understand the power of that choice. One of the most powerful ideas taught by Marcus Aurelius is surprisingly simple. Before every emotional reaction, there is a moment, a small pause between what happens and how you respond. Most people never notice this moment. Life moves too fast. Someone says something rude, instant anger. Someone disrespects you, instant frustration. Someone challenges your authority, instant defensiveness. The reaction feels automatic. But Marcus Aurelius believed that this automatic reaction is actually a habit built from years of emotional training. And like any habit, it can be changed. The Stoics believed that emotional mastery begins with awareness of this pause. This pause is where freedom exists. Because in that moment, you have a choice. You can react, or you can respond. Most people react. Reaction is impulsive. It is driven by ego. It is controlled by emotion. Response is different. Response is deliberate. It is guided by reason. It is controlled by awareness. Now imagine a situation. Someone insults you publicly. The first impulse is anger. Your mind wants to defend itself immediately. But a Stoic warrior notices something different. They notice the emotion rising. They feel it, but they do not obey it. Instead, they pause. That pause might last only 2 seconds, but in those 2 seconds, the mind asks a question. Is this worth my peace? That question alone changes the entire emotional dynamic. Most of the time, the answer is obvious. No. But because most people never pause, they never ask the question, so they react, they argue, they escalate, they enter emotional battles that drain their energy. Marcus Aurelius trained himself to interrupt this pattern. Whenever he felt anger rising, he reminded himself of a powerful truth. Anger is temporary, but the consequences of anger can be permanent. A single angry reaction can destroy relationships, damage reputations, create regrets, and often the situation that caused the anger was trivial in the first place. This realization changes how you view emotion. Instead of seeing anger as a command, you see it as a signal that something triggered your expectations. Maybe someone disrespected you. Maybe someone acted unfairly. Maybe something did not go the way you planned. But the Stoics believe something important. The world will never behave exactly as you expect. People will be irrational, selfish, impatient, disrespectful. Marcus Aurelius wrote a famous reminder to himself. Each morning he would say, "Today I will meet people who are meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and selfish." But he did not say this with bitterness. He said it with preparation. Preparation protects emotional stability. If you expect the world to behave perfectly, every imperfection will anger you. But if you expect human imperfection, your mind remains calm. This mindset creates emotional resilience. Instead of being shocked by bad behavior, you recognize it as part of human nature. And when something becomes predictable, it stops feeling personal. Now consider another Stoic practice: reframing. Reframing means changing the meaning you assign to events. Someone criticizes you. You can interpret it as humiliation, or you can interpret it as information. Someone ignores you. You can interpret it as rejection, or you can interpret it as their distraction. Someone insults you. You can interpret it as an attack, or you can interpret it as a reflection of their character. The event does not change, but the meaning changes, and meaning determines emotion. This is why Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Once you understand this deeply, emotional control becomes possible because you stop trying to control the world. Instead, you control your interpretation of it. Now, imagine applying this daily. A coworker criticizes your work. Instead of reacting defensively, you pause. You analyze the criticism. If it contains truth, you improve. If it does not, you ignore it. No anger required. A stranger insults you. Instead of arguing, you recognize their emotional state. Their words reflect them, not you. No anger required. A plan fails unexpectedly. Instead of frustration, you adapt. Failure becomes feedback. No anger required. Slowly, this mindset reshapes your emotional landscape. You stop fighting every battle. You stop carrying unnecessary anger. Your mind becomes quieter, clearer, stronger, and people begin noticing something unusual. You are difficult to provoke, difficult to offend, difficult to destabilize. This calm presence changes how others interact with you, because emotional reactions give people leverage. But when that leverage disappears, manipulation fails. The Stoics understood this deeply. The person who controls their mind cannot easily be controlled by others. This is the beginning of Stoic strength. Not physical strength, mental strength. The strength to pause, to observe, to choose your response deliberately. Because that pause between event and reaction is where true power lives. And once you learn to live in that pause, your emotions stop controlling your life. Instead, your reason begins guiding it. One of the most powerful lessons taught by Marcus Aurelius is this: an insult has no power unless you accept it. Most people misunderstand this idea. They believe words themselves carry emotional weight. But the Stoics believed that words are simply sounds. They become painful only when your mind agrees with them. Imagine someone calls you incompetent. If you secretly doubt your competence, the insult hurts deeply. But if you know your abilities clearly, the insult feels strange, almost irrelevant. The words are the same. The difference is belief. Marcus Aurelius practiced separating external events from internal judgment. Someone may say something offensive. That is the event. Your mind then decides what the event means. That is the judgment. If your judgment says, "This damages my reputation," you feel anger. If your judgment says, "This person is speaking from ignorance," you remain calm. This ability to separate events from interpretation is one of the strongest Stoic skills. Most people fuse the two together. Someone insults them. They instantly accept the insult as meaningful, and emotional reaction follows immediately. But the Stoics trained themselves to question every interpretation. They would ask, is this actually harmful, or is it simply someone else's opinion? Most of the time, insults fall into the second category. They are opinions, and opinions only hurt when you give them authority. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly that the opinions of others cannot change his character. Someone may call you dishonest, but if you remain honest, their words change nothing. Someone may call you weak, but if you continue acting with discipline, their opinion becomes meaningless. This realization removes the emotional sting from criticism, because you stop seeking validation from the same people who criticize you. Now consider another Stoic insight. Most insults reveal more about the speaker than the target. An angry person reveals anger. A jealous person reveals jealousy. A dishonest person reveals dishonesty. When someone attacks you unfairly, they are displaying their own character, not defining yours. Understanding this shifts your emotional focus. Instead of feeling attacked, you observe. You see their frustration, their insecurity, their need for attention. And once you see the emotional source behind their words, the insult loses its power. Now imagine two individuals again. Someone insults them publicly. The first reacts with anger. They argue. They defend themselves aggressively. Their emotional reaction gives the insult more attention. The conflict grows. The second person remains calm. They listen. They pause. They respond with clarity or not at all. The insult fades quickly because there is no emotional fuel feeding it. Which person appears stronger? Almost always the calm one, because emotional discipline communicates confidence. Confidence communicates control, and control commands respect. Marcus Aurelius believed that emotional reactions often give power to people who do not deserve it. When you react angrily to someone who is behaving irrationally, you elevate their importance. You allow them to influence your mood. But when you remain calm, their influence disappears. This is why Stoics practiced emotional distance, not emotional suppression. Distance. They observed their emotions without immediately obeying them. When anger appeared, they noticed it. But they asked themselves, is this reaction useful? Will anger improve the situation, or will it simply make things worse? In most cases, anger creates more problems than it solves. It damages communication, it clouds judgment, it escalates conflict. Marcus Aurelius believed that reason must remain stronger than emotion, not because emotion is bad, but because emotion is temporary. Anger fades quickly, but decisions made during anger can last forever. Now let us explore a practical Stoic technique. When someone insults you, imagine viewing the situation from above. The Stoics called this the view from above. Picture the entire situation as if you were watching it from a distance. Two people speaking, one person reacting emotionally, one person speaking carelessly. Suddenly, the conflict appears smaller, less personal, less significant. This perspective shrinks the emotional intensity. It reminds you that the moment will pass, that the world is much larger than this single interaction. Marcus Aurelius used this technique often. He reminded himself that most conflicts that feel enormous in the moment become irrelevant within days. Time reduces emotional intensity. And the Stoic warrior remembers this before reacting. They ask themselves, will this matter tomorrow? Will this matter next week? Most of the time the answer is no. And once you realize that, anger feels unnecessary. Now imagine living with this mindset daily. People speak harshly. You remain calm. People criticize unfairly. You evaluate logically. People try to provoke you. You observe quietly. Your emotional stability becomes noticeable. Others begin to treat you differently, not because you demanded respect, but because you demonstrated control. And control is the foundation of Stoic strength. The stronger your control over your mind, the less influence others have over your emotions. Eventually, something powerful happens. Insults become noise. Criticism becomes information. Conflict becomes manageable. And your mind becomes difficult to disturb. This is the beginning of becoming emotionally untouchable, not through aggression, not through pride, but through understanding, understanding human behavior, understanding your own mind, and understanding that no one can truly insult you unless you allow their words to define your worth. Anger feels powerful. When it rises, your body fills with energy. Your heart beats faster. Your mind sharpens. You feel ready to defend yourself, ready to respond, ready to fight. But Marcus Aurelius understood something most people miss. Anger may feel powerful, but it is one of the weakest emotions to rely on. Because anger removes your control, it makes you predictable. And predictability gives power to others. A Stoic warrior does not eliminate emotion. They eliminate emotional slavery. They refuse to become controlled by anger. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly of a simple truth. When someone behaves badly, it is because they do not understand better. This idea changes everything. When a child throws a tantrum, you do not become angry. You recognize immaturity. When someone behaves irrationally, the Stoic applies the same logic. They recognize ignorance, not malice, because ignorance is far more common than cruelty. This shift in perspective weakens anger immediately. Instead of seeing enemies everywhere, you see people struggling with their own limitations. And when you understand the limitations of others, your mind becomes calmer. But Marcus Aurelius went even further. He believed anger harms the person who feels it more than the person who causes it. Think about that for a moment. When you become angry, who suffers first? Your mind becomes restless. Your body becomes tense. Your judgment becomes clouded. Your peace disappears. The other person may not even care. They may not even notice. Yet your internal world is disturbed. This is why Stoics viewed anger as a self-inflicted wound, not something imposed by others. And once you understand that, your relationship with anger begins to change. Instead of justifying it, you begin questioning it. You ask yourself, is this emotion improving my life? Is it helping me solve the situation? Or is it simply draining my energy? Most of the time, anger solves nothing. It escalates conflict. It damages relationships. It pushes people further away. Marcus Aurelius trained his mind to respond differently. When anger began rising, he reminded himself of several Stoic truths. First, people act according to their understanding. Some people understand patience. Others understand arrogance. Some understand discipline. Others understand chaos. If someone behaves poorly, it reveals their character, not yours. Second, everyone makes mistakes, including you. If you expect perfection from others, you will be angry constantly, because human beings are imperfect by nature. Understanding this removes unrealistic expectations, and removing unrealistic expectations reduces frustration. Third, your time on this earth is limited. Marcus Aurelius frequently reminded himself of mortality. not to create fear, but to create perspective. He asked himself, is this conflict worth wasting a piece of my life? Will this argument matter in a year? In most cases, the answer was obvious. No, this perspective makes anger feel trivial. Now consider another Stoic technique. Delaying reaction. Anger thrives on speed. The faster you react, the stronger the emotion becomes. But when you delay reaction, something interesting happens. The emotion weakens. Imagine someone insults you. Instead of responding instantly, you wait. You breathe. You observe. Even a few seconds of silence can change the entire emotional dynamic. The mind regains clarity. Reason returns. The Stoics believe that time is one of the strongest antidotes to anger. Give the mind a moment, and emotion loses its intensity. Marcus Aurelius practiced this constantly. He wrote that the best revenge against insult is not imitation. If someone behaves poorly, you do not lower yourself to their behavior. You remain disciplined, calm, rational, because copying bad behavior spreads it, but refusing to imitate it stops the cycle. This discipline requires strength, real strength. Anyone can shout when angry. Anyone can argue. Anyone can lose control. But controlling your mind when anger rises requires practice, and that practice changes how people see you. They notice something unusual. You are calm in situations where others lose control. You remain composed during conflict. You refuse to be provoked easily. This emotional stability becomes your greatest advantage, because people who cannot provoke you cannot control you, and people who cannot control you must respect you. Now, imagine living this way consistently. Someone insults you, you remain calm. Someone criticizes unfairly, you analyze logically. Someone tries to provoke a reaction, you refuse to participate. Gradually, your mind becomes stronger, your emotions become quieter, your responses become deliberate. You stop being dragged into emotional battles that once consumed your energy. Instead, you observe the world with clarity, and clarity allows you to act wisely. This is the Stoic warrior's mindset, not emotional suppression. Emotional mastery, because the strongest warrior is not the one who defeats others. It is the one who defeats the chaos within their own mind. And when you reach that level of control, something remarkable happens. The world may still behave unpredictably. People may still act irrationally. But your inner peace remains steady, because your emotions no longer depend on the behavior of others. They depend on your discipline, and discipline is the strongest shield a Stoic warrior can carry. Mastering your emotions is not something that happens once, it is a daily practice. Even Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men in the world, constantly reminded himself to train his mind. He ruled an empire, commanded armies, faced betrayal, disease, and political conflict. Yet every day he wrote personal reflections reminding himself to remain calm, rational, and disciplined. These reflections later became known as meditations, and inside them you see something remarkable. A powerful emperor reminding himself of the same emotional struggles everyone faces: impatience, frustration, anger, doubt. This reveals an important truth. Emotional mastery is not about eliminating emotions forever. It is about practicing control repeatedly. Marcus Aurelius built that control through daily mental habits. The first habit was morning preparation. Before facing the world, he reminded himself what kind of people he might encounter. People who are impatient, people who are arrogant, people who are dishonest, people who are selfish. Most people begin the day expecting cooperation from everyone, but when reality delivers conflict instead, they become frustrated. The Stoic warrior expects imperfection, not with cynicism, with realism. This expectation removes surprise, and when something is not surprising, it becomes easier to handle calmly. Imagine waking up knowing that someone may insult you today. Someone may disagree with you. Someone may behave irrationally. If it happens, you are prepared. Preparation reduces emotional shock. An emotional shock is what triggers anger. Now consider the second Stoic habit, self-observation. Marcus Aurelius constantly examined his own thoughts. He asked himself questions. Why did that comment upset me? Why did I react emotionally? Was my reaction justified? Or was it ego? This practice builds awareness, and awareness is the foundation of emotional control. Most people never question their emotional reactions. They assume their anger is justified. They assume their frustration is reasonable. But the Stoic warrior examines every emotion, not to suppress it, but to understand it. Because once you understand the source of an emotion, it becomes easier to manage. Now let us explore the third habit, negative visualization. This may sound strange at first, but it is one of the most powerful Stoic techniques. Marcus Aurelius occasionally imagined losing things he valued, his health, his position, his loved ones, not to become depressed, but to develop appreciation and resilience. When you imagine loss, your mind becomes prepared for change. Prepared minds handle difficulty calmly. Unprepared minds panic. Negative visualization reduces emotional shock, and reducing emotional shock increases emotional stability. The fourth habit was focusing only on what can be controlled. This principle is central to Stoic philosophy. There are two categories in life: things you can control and things you cannot. You can control your actions, your reactions, your decisions, but you cannot control the opinions of others, the behavior of strangers, unexpected events. When people try to control what is uncontrollable, frustration appears. But when you focus only on your own actions, peace increases. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Once you truly accept this idea, something powerful happens. You stop fighting reality. You stop wasting emotional energy on things you cannot change. Instead, you direct your effort toward your own character. And character is always within your control. Now let us consider the fifth habit, evening reflection. At the end of the day, Marcus Aurelius reviewed his actions. Where did I react emotionally? Where did I remain calm? What can I improve tomorrow? This reflection turns every day into training. Every mistake becomes a lesson. Every moment of discipline becomes reinforcement. And slowly, your emotional habits change. Anger becomes less frequent. Patience becomes natural. Calmness becomes your default state. Now imagine living with these habits consistently. You begin each day mentally prepared. You observe your emotions instead of obeying them. You accept that not everything is within your control. You reflect on your behavior each night. Gradually, your mind becomes stronger, more disciplined, more stable. People notice something different about you. You do not react impulsively. You do not escalate unnecessary conflicts. You remain calm even in difficult situations. This calm presence becomes your advantage because the world is full of emotional reactions, anger, impatience, impulsiveness, but someone who remains steady stands out immediately. That steadiness commands respect, not because you demand it, because you demonstrate control, and control is rare. Marcus Aurelius believed that the greatest victory a person can achieve is victory over their own mind. You cannot control everything that happens in life, but you can control how you respond. And your response determines your character, your peace, your influence. A Stoic warrior is not someone who never feels emotion. It is someone who refuses to be ruled by emotion, someone who pauses before reacting, someone who thinks before speaking, someone who chooses reason over impulse. When you reach this level of discipline, something remarkable happens. The world may still be chaotic. People may still behave irrationally, but your mind remains calm, focused, unshaken, because you have learned the most powerful lesson Marcus Aurelius ever wrote to himself. The mind that governs itself cannot easily be disturbed by anything outside it. And once your mind reaches that state, emotional chaos loses its control over your life. You become steady in storms, calm in conflict, and unshakable in the face of anything the world throws at you. That is the strength of a Stoic warrior.